1 year after my daughter-in-law moved into my house, she created what seemed to be a successful charity. Everything appeared perfect, until the police suddenly raided our home. What they uncovered left me frozen with fear. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. The morning the agents came, I was watering the tomatoes in my backyard garden. At 63 years old, I'd learned that certain routines keep you grounded. The feel of cool soil between your fingers, the satisfaction of watching something grow from seed to harvest. My house in rural Pennsylvania, a modest 2-story farmhouse I'd bought with my late husband 30 years ago, had always been my sanctuary. The kind of place where neighbors waved from their porches and the biggest excitement was the annual county fair. That sanctuary was about to become a prison. I heard the vehicles before I saw them. 3 black SUVs pulling into my gravel driveway with the kind of purposeful speed that makes your heart skip. I set down my watering can, wiped my hands on my gardening apron, and walked around to the front of the house. My daughter-in-law, Victoria, was already at the door, her phone pressed to her ear, her face pale beneath her carefully applied makeup. "Mrs. Leona Weaver?" A tall man in a dark suit approached me, his badge already extended. "I'm Agent Brown with Immigration and Customs Enforcement. We have a warrant to search these premises." The world seemed to tilt slightly. "I'm sorry. There must be some mistake. I'm a retired school teacher. I don't— Is this your residence?" "Yes, but—" "Then there's no mistake." He handed me a folded document. Behind him, at least a dozen agents were already moving toward my house, and I noticed neighbors beginning to emerge onto their porches, phones in hand. Victoria had ended her call and was beside me now, her hand on my arm. "Mom, don't say anything. I've called our lawyer." She'd started calling me Mom a year ago when she and my son Baron moved in temporarily, or what was supposed to be temporary. Her voice was steady, but I felt her fingers trembling. "Ma'am, we need you both inside." Another agent, a woman with sharp eyes and pulled-back hair, gestured toward the door. The next 2 hours passed in a blur of strangers rifling through my life. They photographed everything. They took my computer, the one Baron had set up for me last Christmas. They emptied filing cabinets, boxed up papers from my desk, even examined the framed photos on my mantel. Through it all, I sat on my own couch like a guest, watching my daughter-in-law pace and whisper urgently into her phone. Baron arrived 20 minutes into the search, his work uniform still dusty from his construction site. "What the hell is going on?" He looked from me to Victoria to the agents dismantling our home. "Sir, please have a seat." Agent Brown appeared from the hallway, carrying a cardboard box I recognized. It had been in the spare bedroom closet, the room Victoria used as her office. "Mrs. Weaver, are you familiar with an organization called Hope Bridge Foundation?" The name sent a flutter through my chest, but it was pride, not fear. "Yes, of course. It's my daughter-in-law's charity. She started it last year to help immigrant families with legal assistance. It's wonderful work." Victoria's face had gone from pale to gray. Agent Brown set the box on my coffee table and pulled out a file folder. "And are you aware that you're listed as co-founder and primary contact for this organization?" The flutter became a knot. "I'm sorry, what? No, that's not right. Victoria founded it. I just helped with some initial donations, told some friends about it. I'm not— Your name is on the incorporation documents filed with the state. Your address, this address, is listed as the headquarters. Your signature appears on the bank account authorization." He spread papers across my table like a dealer laying out cards in a game I didn't know I was playing. I reached for the documents with shaking hands. There, in black and white, was my signature. Except I'd never seen these papers before in my life. "Mrs. Weaver, are you also aware that Hope Bridge Foundation has been under investigation for the past 3 months?" "Investigation?" Baron was on his feet. "For what?" The female agent spoke this time, her voice flat and professional. "Fraud, identity theft, and conspiring to defraud immigrants seeking legal assistance." "That's absurd," Victoria finally spoke, her voice stronger now. "Hope Bridge has helped dozens of families. We've raised over $60,000 in donations. We've connected people with legitimate immigration attorneys. Mom, Leona, she's been so supportive. but she's had nothing to do with the day-to-day operations. This is clearly some kind of misunderstanding. Agent Brown pulled out another folder. This one was thicker, stuffed with printed pages. In the past 11 months, Hope Bridge Foundation received donations totaling $63,400. During that same period, 47 families paid between $500 and $2,000 each for legal assistance that was never provided. Instead, their personal information, addresses, workplace locations, family member details, was reported to ICE through our anonymous tip line. The room went silent except for the sound of agents moving through the upstairs. Reported? I heard my own voice as if from a distance. Reported to, you mean someone told you where these families were, and then we acted on credible intelligence to enforce immigration law. Agent Brown's expression was carefully neutral. Each tip was detailed, accurate, and resulted in enforcement actions. 47 families, 116 individuals total, including 31 children. All of them had engaged Hope Bridge Foundation for help. All of them were deported within weeks of their initial contact with your organization. Victoria was shaking her head, her hands up as if to physically push away his words. This is insane. I would never do something like that. Leona, tell them this is crazy. I couldn't speak. I was looking at a printout Agent Brown had placed in front of me, a spreadsheet with names, dates, donation amounts. And beside each name, a date marked ICE referral and a dollar amount marked reward payment. Because of course there were rewards. ICE paid for tips leading to deportations. The total reward payments deposited into the Hope Bridge Foundation account over 11 months, $21,300. Agent Brown's voice was quieter now, almost gentle. He'd seen this before. Someone's world cracking open. Mrs. Weaver, you're facing serious federal charges. Wire fraud, identity theft, conspiracy to defraud, and potentially charges related to the immigration violations themselves. She didn't do this. Barron's voice was hoarse. He was looking at Victoria now, really looking at her, and I saw something in his face I'd never seen before. Doubt. Mom would never. She spent 30 years teaching kids from every background imaginable. She's donated to actual immigrant rights organizations for years. She couldn't. Your mother's signature is on the bank accounts. Her name is on the incorporation papers. The address is her address. The computer we're seizing is registered to her. Phone records show numerous calls from her number to families who later reported making payments. Agent Brown closed the folder. What we need to understand is whether she was an active participant or whether someone else had access to her identity, her home, and her trust. He was looking at Victoria when he said it. She met his gaze steadily. If someone stole Leona's identity to do this, we need to find out who. This is her house. Lots of people have been in and out. Friends, family, service people, charity volunteers. Anyone could have accessed her personal information, but not anyone had access to create a bank account in her name, or sign incorporation documents, or use her computer to communicate with victims. The female agent had returned, carrying my laptop. Mrs. Weaver, when was the last time you personally used this computer? I tried to think. A few days ago? I use it for email, mostly, and online banking. And who else has access to it? My eyes went to Victoria. She'd set it up for me, helped me create passwords, showed me how to use it efficiently. She'd been so patient, so kind. Just family, I whispered. Agent Brown stood. Mrs. Weaver, I'm going to need you to come with us. We have questions, and it would be better to do this formally, downtown. You're not under arrest at this moment, but I'm advising you that you're a subject of an active federal investigation, and anything you say can be used in court. Barron moved to stand beside me. She needs a lawyer. That's her right. Agent Brown's expression softened fractionally. But Mrs. Weaver, I'll tell you this as clearly as I can. Someone ran a sophisticated, cruel scheme from this house. They exploited vulnerable people, destroyed families, and profited from their suffering. If that someone wasn't you need to help us figure out who it was. Because right now, all the evidence points to your involvement. whether willing or unwitting. As they led me toward the door, I looked back at my living room. Victoria was standing by the window, backlit by afternoon sun, her silhouette perfect and still. She was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Was it sympathy? Fear? Or was it something else entirely? In the car on the way to the federal building, watching my neighborhood disappear behind me, I realized what had been nagging at the edge of my consciousness for months. Little things. Victoria's new designer handbags, the weekend trip to New York she and Barron took, the way she'd insisted on handling all the Hope Bridge paperwork herself, protecting me from boring administrative stuff, the way she'd moved into my house temporarily and then somehow never left, and the memory that surfaced now, sharp and clear, 3 months ago, coming home early from my book club to find Victoria in my bedroom, sitting at my desk, my filing cabinet open beside her. She'd jumped when I entered, laughed it off, said she was looking for an old recipe card I'd mentioned. I'd thought nothing of it. I'd thought nothing of so many things. The agent beside me in the back seat was typing on her phone. My hands were folded in my lap, still smelling faintly of tomato plants and soil. I thought about the families, 47 of them, 116 people, 31 children, all of them trusting, hoping, desperate enough to reach out for help. And someone had turned that hope into a weapon. Someone using my name. The interrogation room at the federal building was nothing like the ones on television. No mirror, no dramatic lighting, just beige walls and fluorescent lights that made everyone look slightly ill. Agent Brown sat across from me with his partner, Agent Reeves, the woman with sharp eyes who'd been at my house. Between us lay folders, my life reduced to paper and accusations. Mrs. Weaver, let's start with how Hope Bridge Foundation came to be. Agent Brown's voice was measured, almost kind. It made me more nervous than if he'd been aggressive. I wrapped my hands around the paper cup of water they'd given me. Victoria mentioned it about a year ago, maybe 13 months. She said she'd been volunteering at a community center in Lancaster, meeting immigrant families who couldn't afford legal help. She wanted to do something more organized. And you supported this idea? Of course I did. My voice came out defensive. It seemed like a beautiful thing, helping people navigate a complicated system, connecting them with legitimate attorneys. She said she'd been researching how to start a nonprofit. Agent Reeves leaned forward. Did you attend any meetings where Hope Bridge was discussed? See any of the families she claimed to be helping? Visit the office? The office. My stomach tightened. There was no separate office. Victoria worked from home, from my home. She said it saved money that could go directly to helping families. So you never met any of the clients? No. Victoria said it was better that way. Confidentiality, you know. Many of them were nervous about their status. She didn't want to overwhelm them with too many people. It had made sense at the time. Now every reasonable explanation felt like a brick in the wall of a trap. Agent Brown opened one of the folders. Mrs. Weaver, I'm going to show you some documents. I need you to tell me if you remember signing them. He slid papers across the table one by one. Bank signature cards, articles of incorporation, a lease agreement for a P.O. box in Lancaster. Each one bore my signature, my actual signature, not a forgery I could easily identify. My hand, my pen pressure, my characteristic way of crossing my T's. I don't remember these. My voice had dropped to a whisper. But that's my signature. I don't understand how... Is it possible you signed documents without reading them carefully? Perhaps your daughter-in-law presented them as something else? I closed my eyes, trying to remember. Victoria had asked me to sign things occasionally. A birthday card for a neighbor, a form for Barron's insurance. Papers, she said, were for her volunteer work. Had she slipped these in among innocent documents? She might have, I admitted. But I'm not senile. I'm not some confused old woman who signs anything put in front of her. I'm careful. I was a teacher for 30 years. I know how to read. No one's suggesting you're senile, Mrs. Weaver. Agent Reeves's tone was gentler now. But we're trying to understand how your signature ended up on documents creating an organization that destroyed 47 families. The number hit me like a physical blow every time I heard it. 47 families. Children torn from schools, parents detained, lives shattered, and my name on the machinery that destroyed them. I want to help those families, I said suddenly. Whatever it takes. If I can testify against whoever did this, if I can provide compensation somehow. Let's focus on figuring out what happened first. Agent Brown pulled out another folder, this one containing bank statements. Hope Bridge Foundation's primary account shows regular deposits from individual donors. Small amounts mostly, $50, $100, $200, then larger payments from the families themselves. Can you explain the pattern here? He pointed to a series of transactions. Every time a family made a payment, there would be a flurry of small donor deposits in the days before, as if the foundation was legitimate and active. Then, 2 to 3 weeks after the family's payment, a deposit from ICE Rewards. Someone was creating the appearance of a functioning charity, I said slowly, understanding dawning, making it look legitimate before taking money from the families. And those small donor deposits? Many of them came from friends of yours, your book club members, your church, your former teaching colleagues. Agent Reeves turned the statement toward me. See these names? Alice Graham, Patricia Morrison, Tom and Linda Garcia, people I'd known for decades. I asked them to donate, I whispered. Victoria gave me information sheets about Hope Bridge. I shared them with friends. I thought I was helping. Oh God, did I help steal from my own friends? The donations from your friends appear to be legitimate. They gave to what they believed was a real charity because they trusted you. Agent Brown's expression was grave. But that trust was weaponized. Your reputation, your relationships, your good name, all of it was used to make Hope Bridge look credible. A knock at the door interrupted us. A younger agent poked his head in. Brown, the lawyer's here. We didn't call a lawyer, Agent Reeves said. For Mrs. Weaver. Says her son retained him. They led me to a small conference room where a man in an expensive suit stood examining his phone. He looked up as I entered, extending his hand with a practiced smile that didn't reach his eyes. Mrs. Weaver, I'm Robert Hastings. Your son Barron and his wife Victoria retained my services on your behalf. I've been briefed on the situation, and I'm here to ensure your rights are protected. His handshake was firm, professional, utterly impersonal. I didn't ask for a lawyer, I said carefully. I mean, I appreciate it, but nevertheless, as your attorney, I'm advising you to stop answering questions immediately. You're not under arrest, which means you're free to leave. We should discuss this matter privately before you say anything else to federal agents. Something about his tone made my skin prickle. Did Victoria hire you? Your son did. But yes, Victoria made the arrangements. She's quite concerned about you. He pulled out a business card, placed it on the table. The family wants to ensure you have the best representation possible. The family. I looked at the card without touching it. Robert Hastings, partner, Hastings and More Legal Group. And who's paying for this representation? That's been taken care of. What matters now is protecting you from what appears to be a very serious misunderstanding. He sat, gestured for me to do the same. From what I understand, you were manipulated by someone, possibly someone with access to your home and personal information. We need to build a defense that demonstrates you were a victim, not a perpetrator. I was a victim, I said slowly, but I'm also responsible. My signature is on those documents, even if I didn't know what I was signing. My name was used to hurt people. I need to make that right. Hastings's smile tightened. Mrs. Weaver, with all due respect, what you need to do is avoid federal prison. You're facing potentially decades behind bars for wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. The government needs someone to prosecute, and right now, you're the easiest target. But Victoria has no paper trail connecting her to any wrongdoing. Your daughter-in-law was, according to all documentation, simply a volunteer helping you run your foundation. If anyone is going to face charges, the evidence currently points to you. The words hit like ice water. That's not possible. She lived in my house. She used my computer. Can you prove she did any of the communications? Can you prove she made the ICE referrals? Can you prove she signed your name to anything? Hastings leaned back in his chair. Or will it be your word against hers? I thought about Victoria's careful way of doing everything, her insistence on handling paperwork, her constant use of my computer rather than her own laptop, how she'd smile and say she liked my setup better, that her laptop was old and slow. She'd never left a trail. Everything led back to me. What do I do? My voice sounded small, defeated. You stay quiet. You let me handle communications with the federal agents. You do not make any statements. Do not try to investigate on your own. Do not discuss this case with anyone except me. He stood, clearly ready to end the meeting. And Mrs. Weaver, it would be wise to remember that your son loves his wife. Accusations without proof will only alienate the family you have left. After Hastings left to discuss my position with the agents, I sat alone in the conference room. Through the small window in the door, I could see him talking with Agent Brown, both men's faces serious. They shook hands. Some kind of understanding reached. My phone buzzed. They'd returned it to me. A text from Barron. Mom, just do what the lawyer says. We'll get through this. I love you. No text from Victoria. I opened my email on my phone, scanning through recent messages with growing dread. There, buried in my sent folder, were emails I didn't remember writing. Messages to families introducing Hope Bridge services. Promises of legal help. Requests for payment to secure attorney consultations. All from my email address. All in my name. But the writing style wasn't quite mine. The punctuation was too perfect. The phrasing too formal. Anyone who knew me well would spot the difference, but federal agents wouldn't know my voice. I started scrolling back further, looking for something, anything that might prove Victoria's involvement. Then, I found it. An email from 4 months ago, a reply to someone named Maria Rodriguez. Thank you for trusting Hope Bridge with your family's future. Your consultation is confirmed for next Tuesday. The email had been sent at 2:30 p.m. on a Thursday. I checked my calendar. That Thursday, I'd been at my book club meeting from 1 to 4. I had witnesses. I couldn't have sent that email. But who would believe me? And how many other alibis could I establish for dozens of emails sent over 11 months? My phone buzzed again. This time, an unknown number. Stop talking to the police. You're making it worse for everyone. Think about Barron. I stared at the message, my hands shaking. Was it a threat? A warning? From whom? Agent Brown appeared at the door. Mrs. Weaver, your attorney has requested that we conclude this interview for today. You're free to go, but please understand, you're not free from this investigation. We'll need to speak with you again, soon. I didn't send those emails. The words burst out of me. Not all of them. I can prove, Mrs. Weaver, as your attorney, I'm instructing you not to. Hastings had appeared behind Brown. On April 14th, at 2:30 p.m., an email was sent from my account. But I was at my book club meeting. I have witnesses. Doesn't that prove someone else had access? Agent Brown's expression shifted slightly. Interest. We'll look into that. But Mrs. Weaver, sophisticated criminals often establish false alibis. And if someone else sent emails from your computer while you were out, that suggests access to your home, your computer, your passwords. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Which means you gave them that access, willingly or carelessly. His tone wasn't unkind, but it was firm. Either way, you're responsible. They escorted me to the building's entrance. Barron was waiting in the parking lot, his truck running. He jumped out when he saw me, pulling me into a tight hug. Mom, I'm so sorry. This is insane. We'll figure it out. Where's Victoria? I asked, pulling back. Something flickered in his expression. She's at the house. She's pretty shaken up. The agents were hard on her too. Barron, we need to talk. About Victoria. About what really... Mom. His voice was sharp, a tone he'd never used with me. The lawyer said not to discuss the case, and he said... He hesitated. He said you might try to blame Victoria because you're scared. That's what people do when they're facing serious charges. They look for scapegoats. Scapegoats? I stepped back from him. You think I'm making this up? I think you're confused and frightened, and maybe you signed things you shouldn't have without realizing what they were. But Victoria would never. She's my wife, Mom. And she's been nothing but good to you, to us. She's been living in my house rent-free for a year, Barron. using my resources, my name, my reputation, because we needed help. Because I lost my job last year and we had nowhere to go. And you offered. Are you saying you regret that now? His face was flushed, hurt and anger mixing in his expression. I hadn't known he lost his job. He'd told me they wanted to spend more time with me, that I was getting older and they wanted to be close. Another lie. Or another thing I'd been too trusting to question. No, Baron, something isn't right. Please just look at the evidence with me. Help me understand what happened. What happened is someone screwed up. Maybe you, maybe someone else, I don't know. And now the government needs someone to blame. But Mom, if you start pointing fingers at Victoria, you'll lose. The lawyer was clear about that. She has no paper trail. You do. He drove me home in silence. When we pulled into my driveway, I saw Victoria through the kitchen window, talking on her phone, pacing. She looked up as we approached, and for just a moment, before she composed her expression into concern, I saw something else. Satisfaction. She ended her call and opened the door, reaching for me. Leona, thank goodness. Are you all right? They wouldn't let me see you. I was so worried. Her embrace felt like a cage. We need to talk, I said quietly, pulling away. All three of us. About what really happened. Of course. Victoria's smile was perfect, sympathetic. But first you should rest. You've had such a traumatic day. I made tea. Your favorite chamomile. Let's just take a breath before we tackle anything else. She guided me toward the living room like I was an invalid. Baron followed, his expression torn between loyalty to his wife and concern for his mother. I thought about the 47 families, about children waking up in detention centers, about parents being deported back to places they'd fled from, about trust being used as a weapon, and I thought about the text message. Think about Baron. Victoria handed me the tea, her hand steady, her smile unwavering. I did not drink it. That night, I lay awake in my own bed, listening to the house settle around me. Down the hall, I could hear Victoria and Baron talking in low voices. Their bedroom door was closed, but occasionally a word would carry. Lawyer, evidence, protect. I wondered which one of us they were talking about protecting. At 3 a.m, I gave up on sleep. Moving quietly, I retrieved my laptop from where the agents had left it on the kitchen counter. They'd examined it but hadn't seized it yet. They'd taken the hard drive data, but the machine itself was mine to use. I sat at my kitchen table in the darkness, the screen's glow casting shadows across my face. I started with my email, going back further than I had at the federal building. Months and months of correspondence I supposedly had with families. The writing was good, professional, warm, just slightly formal, almost like my voice, but not quite. Victoria had studied me, learned my patterns, then improved on them. But people make mistakes when they're being clever. I found the first crack in her facade in an email from 7 months ago. A response to someone named Jorge Morales about his consultation appointment. The email referenced a meeting last Tuesday at our Lancaster office. But I'd been in the hospital last Tuesday, a minor procedure, day surgery for a kidney stone. Baron had driven me. Victoria had visited me there. There was no way I could have met with anyone in Lancaster. I took a screenshot, saved it to a new folder I created called Garden Photos 2024. If Victoria checked my computer, and I had to assume she did regularly, an innocuous folder name might buy me time. The house creaked. I froze, listening. Footsteps in the hallway. I closed the laptop and waited. Victoria appeared in the kitchen doorway, wrapped in a silk robe I'd never seen before. Expensive. New. Leona, are you all right? I heard noise. Her voice was soft, concerned. She moved toward me, and I caught the scent of her perfume, something floral and costly. Couldn't sleep, I said, keeping my tone mild. I'm sorry if I disturbed you. You didn't disturb me. I've been worried about you. She pulled out a chair, sat across from me in the darkness. Baron's very upset. He doesn't know what to believe. And what do you believe, Victoria? She reached across the table, covered my hand with hers. Her skin was cool, smooth. I believe someone manipulated you, used your kindness against you, And I believe we need to figure out who, before this destroys our whole family. Our family, I repeated. Tell me, when were you planning to move out of my house? The question seemed to catch her off guard. Her hand stiffened on mine. I don't understand. You and Baron moved in a year ago. Temporarily, you said. But you've made no moves to leave. You've never even mentioned looking for your own place. We've been helping you, Leona. The house is too big for you to manage alone. We've been contributing. How? Baron lost his job. You told him that was a secret, but he mentioned it today. What have you been contributing, Victoria? And with what money? The silence stretched between us. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. Still soft, but with an edge now. I've been running a charity. That takes time and energy. And yes, there are administrative fees. Standard nonprofit compensation. Show me the tax returns. I'm sorry? Hope Bridge Foundation. Show me the tax returns. Nonprofits file them publicly. Let's look at them together right now. Victoria stood slowly. It's 3 a.m, Leona. You're exhausted and stressed and not thinking clearly. We can discuss all of this with the lawyer tomorrow. Your lawyer, who you hired for me, who told me to stay quiet and not investigate. I stood too, facing her across my kitchen table. Who told me that accusing you would only hurt my case? Very convenient advice. You think I did this? Her voice rose slightly, genuine-sounding hurt coloring her words. You think I would destroy families, report people to be deported, use your name to commit crimes? Leona, I know you're frightened, but you can't honestly believe. I believe 47 families are gone because someone used my house, my computer, my reputation, and my signature. I believe all the evidence points to me because someone made sure it would. And I believe the only person with constant access to everything needed to make this happen was you. I'm calling Baron. She pulled out her phone. Don't. My voice came out harder than I'd ever spoken to her. Don't wake my son. Don't play the victim. Don't pretend you're protecting me. Just tell me the truth, Victoria. Why did you do it? For a long moment, she stared at me. Then something shifted in her expression, the mask of concern sliding away, replaced by something colder and infinitely more calculating. You want the truth? She set her phone down on the counter. The truth is, you made this easy. You're so good, Leona. So trusting. So eager to help. Do you know how rare that is? How valuable? My heart was pounding, but I kept my voice steady. So, you admit it. I admit nothing that could be proven. She smiled, and it was nothing like the warm expressions she'd shown me for a year. But hypothetically, if someone wanted to run a profitable operation helping desperate people part with their money, they'd need legitimacy, a face people trust, an address in a quiet town, a reputation beyond reproach, and they'd need someone naive enough to provide all of that without asking too many questions. The families, the children, how could you? They were breaking the law. Her tone was matter of fact. I didn't make them come here illegally. I didn't make them gullible enough to trust a charity they found online. I simply provided information to the proper authorities and received the reward money as any citizen can. It's all legal, Leona. Perfectly legal. Taking their money under false pretenses isn't legal. Wire fraud isn't legal. Prove I took anything. Prove I sent any emails. Prove I made any calls. She leaned against the counter, completely relaxed now. All anyone can prove is that you ran a charity that turned out to be fraudulent. Your signature, your computer, your email, your house, your reputation bringing in donors. Baron will believe me. Victoria laughed, a genuine sound of amusement. Will he? Baron, who's been married to me for 4 years? Baron, who depends on me for everything since he lost his job? Baron, who just watched his mother get investigated by federal agents while his wife stood by her side? She paused. Or did you notice I'm pregnant? The words hit like a physical blow. What? 3 months. We haven't announced it yet. Wanted to wait until the 2nd trimester. But yes, Baron's going to be a father. And you, Leona, are going to be a grandmother. Her smile widened. So when you ask yourself whether Baron will believe his pregnant wife or his increasingly confused elderly mother who apparently ran a criminal operation from her house, what do you think the answer will be? I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Here's what's going to happen. Victoria's voice was calm, explaining something to a slow student. You're going to take the blame for this. Your lawyer, my lawyer really, will negotiate a plea deal. You'll claim confusion, maybe early dementia. You'll get a reduced sentence, probably home detention given your age and lack of criminal history. A few years of house arrest, some fines you'll pay off by mortgaging this lovely home, and then it will be over. And if I refuse, if I fight this, then you'll go to trial. They'll parade victim after victim through that courtroom, families you destroyed, children you traumatized, and every piece of evidence will point to you. You'll spend what's left of your life in federal prison. She paused. And you'll never meet your grandchild. Baron won't bring a baby to visit a grandmother in prison. I'll make sure of that. You're evil. The words came out as a whisper. I'm practical, and I'm good at what I do. She picked up her phone. Now, are we going to wake Baron and have a dramatic confrontation where I play the hurt, shocked wife and he's forced to choose between us? Or are you going to be smart and realize you're beaten? I thought about everything I'd found. The email sent while I was in the hospital, the inconsistencies in writing style, the timeline that didn't quite fit. Would it be enough? Could I prove anything? And even if I could, would Baron believe me? Would anyone? I need time to think, I finally said. Of course you do. Victoria moved toward the hallway, then paused. Oh, and Leona, I'd be careful about doing any investigating on your own. The federal agents are watching you. If you contact any of the families, they could claim you're tampering with witnesses. If you dig too deeply, it looks like you're trying to cover your tracks. Your lawyer, my lawyer, will explain all this to you. You're in a very delicate position. One wrong move and you go from possible plea deal to guaranteed prison time. She disappeared down the hallway, leaving me alone in my kitchen. I sat back down, hands shaking, mind racing. She'd boxed me in completely. Every avenue of defense was a trap. Every move I could make would be used against me. But she'd made one mistake. She'd admitted the truth to me, confident I was helpless to use it. And in her arrogance, she'd told me exactly what she was afraid of. Proof that someone else had sent those emails, had made those calls, had committed those crimes. I opened my laptop again and started searching for something I remembered from my teaching days. Years ago, one of my students had gotten in trouble for plagiarism. We'd used a program that analyzed writing patterns, sentence structure, word choice, punctuation habits. It could identify whether different documents were written by the same person. If Victoria had written those emails pretending to be me, there would be patterns. Differences from my actual writing. Evidence that wouldn't rely on alibis or witness testimony, but on something objective and provable. I found the website, uploaded 2 documents, one of the supposed emails I'd sent to a family, and one of my actual emails to a friend from the same time period. The analysis would take a few hours. Then I started looking into something else. Victoria had mentioned administrative fees for herself from Hope Bridge. Non-profits had to report that compensation. If she'd paid herself anything, any salary, any reimbursement, there would be a record. I found the Pennsylvania nonprofit database and searched for Hope Bridge Foundation. There it was, incorporated 18 months ago. I downloaded the Form 990, the tax return for nonprofits. And there, in the section on compensation, was a salary payment. $25,000 to Victoria Walsh. Not her married name of Victoria Weaver, but her maiden name. Listed as Executive Director. She'd paid herself, officially, on a document filed with the IRS. My hands were shaking as I took screenshots, saved them to my innocent garden photos folder. This was proof. Proof she wasn't just a volunteer, but a paid director. Proof she had financial motivation. Proof she was more involved than she claimed. It wasn't enough to clear me, but it was a start. The sun was beginning to rise when Baron found me at the kitchen table, surrounded by papers and printouts. He looked exhausted, older than his 34 years. Mom, what are you doing? Research. I gestured at the papers. Baron, sit down, please. I need to show you something. Mom? The lawyer said, I know what the lawyer said, but he works for Victoria, not me. And I need you to see this before you make any decisions about who to believe. I pulled out the Form 990. Look at this. It's Hope Bridge's tax return. Victoria is listed as executive director with a salary. She wasn't just volunteering, Baron. She was running this organization and paying herself. He took the paper, studied it. I don't understand. Why would she hide that? Because if she was paid director, she's responsible for what the organization did. It's not just me anymore. She had authority, she had financial interest, she had motive. I pulled out the email evidence. And look at this. An email supposedly sent by me while I was in the hospital having surgery. You drove me that day. You know I couldn't have met with anyone in Lancaster. Baron read through the document slowly. I watched his face, seeing the conflict there. Love for his wife, loyalty to his mother, and the slow, creeping doubt that something wasn't right. She's pregnant, he said finally. Did she tell you? She did. I was going to tell you this morning. It's why we haven't moved out. We've been saving money, trying to prepare for the baby. Victoria said. He stopped, looked at me. She said you were happy to have us stay as long as we needed. I was. I am. Baron, this isn't about wanting you out of my house. This is about 47 families who were destroyed, and someone using my name to do it. But if Victoria was involved, if she did any of this, the baby... His voice broke. I can't raise a child with someone who could do something like that. Which is why she's made sure all the evidence points to me. I reached across the table, took his hand. She's counting on you choosing her, choosing your child, and I understand if you do. But I need you to know the truth, even if you can't act on it. Before he could respond, Victoria appeared in the doorway. She'd dressed, put on makeup. She looked fresh, put together, like someone ready to face the day. Good morning? Her eyes moved from me to Baron to the papers spread across the table. Something flickered in her expression. What's all this? We're just talking, Vic. Baron's voice was strained. About? She moved closer, casually, but I saw the tension in her shoulders. About how involved you really were in Hope Bridge. I said evenly. About your salary. About your position as executive director. About the fact that you weren't just a volunteer helping me. Victoria looked at the Form 990 in Baron's hand. For just a moment, her mask slipped. Surprise, calculation, then recovery. Of course I was executive director. Someone had to do the actual work while Leona was the public face. I never hid that, Baron. You knew I was running things day to day. You told me you were volunteering. Baron's voice was quiet. You said it was Leona's charity and you were just helping out. Well, yes. Technically, it was her organization. I was just paid $25,000 to run it, I interrupted. Which means you had financial motive and operational control. Which means you can't claim you were just an innocent volunteer anymore. Victoria's expression hardened. Fine. Yes, I was paid. That's standard for nonprofit management. It doesn't prove anything except that I worked hard to help people. Work that apparently wasn't appreciated since it's now being used to attack me. She turned to Baron, and I saw her strategy shift, tears welling in her eyes, her hand moving to her stomach in a protective gesture. Baron, I can't believe she's doing this. I've supported her through everything. I stood by her when the agents came, and now she's trying to make me the villain because she can't face what she did. Her voice broke convincingly. And she's doing it when she knows about the baby. When she knows this stress could... Stop. Baron stood, and both of us fell silent. He looked between us. His wife, his mother, two women he loved pulling him in opposite directions. Just stop, both of you. I can't. I need to think. He walked out, leaving Victoria and me alone in the kitchen. She wiped away her tears. They disappeared as quickly as they'd come. Clever, she said softly, showing him the 990. But you're forgetting something, Leona. Proof that I was involved doesn't prove you weren't. We could both be guilty. We probably will both be charged, actually, now that you've made sure of it. But I'll claim you manipulated me, used me, pressured me. Young wife trying to please her husband's mother. And who will the jury believe? She leaned close, her voice dropping to a whisper. The pregnant woman? Or the bitter old lady trying to drag her down? Then she walked away, leaving me with my papers, my evidence, and the sinking realization that she was right. I'd shown my hand too early, and now she knew exactly what I had and what I didn't. The next 48 hours passed in a strange, tense silence. Baron moved through the house like a ghost, avoiding both of us. Victoria played the wounded innocent perfectly, cooking meals I didn't eat, offering concern I didn't accept, speaking softly to Baron behind closed doors. I heard her crying at night, heard Baron comforting her, heard the words stress and baby and can't take much more. She was driving a wedge between us, and she was doing it masterfully. On the third morning, Agent Reeves appeared at my door. Alone this time, which somehow felt more ominous than a team. "Mrs. Weaver, may I come in?" I led her to the kitchen, where Victoria was making coffee. My daughter-in-law's hand went to her stomach in that protective gesture she'd perfected, her face arranging itself into anxious concern. "Agent Reeves, is there news? Are you any closer to finding who did this to Leona?" The agent's expression was unreadable. "Actually, Mrs. Weaver, the younger Mrs. Weaver, I need to speak with you as well. Both of you, preferably together." Victoria poured coffee with steady hands. "Of course, whatever helps." Agent Reeves spread documents across my kitchen table, the same table where I'd confronted Victoria 3 nights ago. "We've been conducting a deeper investigation into Hope Bridge Foundation's operations, and we've found some interesting discrepancies." My heart jumped. Had they found something? Some proof I hadn't? "The tax returns show Victoria Walsh, your maiden name, correct? As paid executive director. But when we spoke with you initially, you claimed to be simply a volunteer helping your mother-in-law. Can you explain that inconsistency?" Victoria didn't miss a beat. "I was trying to protect Leona. The focus was on her, and I didn't want to complicate things by drawing attention to my minor role. Yes, I received a small salary for managing day-to-day operations, but Leona was the founder, the face, the driving force. I was just $25,000 isn't exactly a small salary for a small nonprofit," Agent Reeves interrupted, "especially one that only operated for 11 months. It was standard compensation for the hours I put in. I can provide time logs if needed. We'd like to see those." Agent Reeves turned to me. "Mrs. Weaver, Leona, were you aware your daughter-in-law was receiving this compensation?" I hesitated. The truth was complicated. "Not at the time, no. But I've since seen the tax documents. And you're comfortable with her having received that money from an organization bearing your name?" Victoria's coffee cup rattled slightly as she set it down. "Are you suggesting I stole from Leona? The salary was approved. Everything was properly documented with the IRS. This is absurd." "What's absurd," Agent Reeves said mildly, "is that a woman supposedly running a legitimate charity would fail to mention her official position and compensation when federal agents came to investigate fraud. It suggests you had something to hide." I was scared. My mother-in-law was being investigated. My husband was falling apart. I'm pregnant and terrified. I wasn't thinking clearly about every detail of nonprofit administration. Convenient. Agent Reeves pulled out another document. "We've also analyzed the email correspondence sent from Leona's account. The forensic linguistics team found something interesting. About 40% of the emails match Leona's known writing patterns. The other 60% show significant deviations in syntax, word choice, and punctuation." My breath caught. The writing analysis program I'd used, the professionals had found the same thing. "What does that mean?" Victoria's voice was carefully controlled. "It means someone else was writing emails from Leona's account. Someone who was trying to sound like her, but couldn't quite match her natural voice." Agent Reeves looked at Victoria. "Someone who had access to her computer, her passwords, and her email. That could be anyone. The house isn't exactly secure. Friends visit, neighbors stop by. But most of those emails were sent during business hours, when Leona can prove she was elsewhere. At her book club, at doctor's appointments, at the grocery store. We've been checking her alibis, Mrs. Weaver, and they're holding up." Victoria stood abruptly. "I need to use the restroom. Morning sickness." She left the kitchen, and Agent Reeves leaned forward. "Mrs. Weaver, Leona, I need to ask you something directly. Do you believe your daughter-in-law committed these crimes? Yes. The word came out firm, certain. But I can't prove it. She's too smart. She made sure everything leads back to me. Not everything. Agent Reeves pulled out her phone, showed me a screenshot. This is a call log from the Hope Bridge Foundation phone line, which was your home phone number. See these calls? They're to ICE tip lines, dozens of them over 11 months, each one shortly after a family made a payment. I didn't make those calls. We know. We pulled the actual recordings from ICE's system. The voice is female, younger than you, and matches Victoria's vocal patterns. She used a burner phone for some, but apparently got careless toward the end and used the house phone. Hope flared in my chest. That's proof. That's actual evidence she made the calls. It's evidence someone using your house phone made calls to ICE. Victoria claims she lives here, has access to the house phone, and might have used it occasionally for legitimate reasons. She could claim she was calling to report suspicious activity she'd noticed, that she didn't know these people were Hope Bridge clients, that it was all coincidental. That's ridiculous. No one would believe. A jury might. Especially when her lawyer paints her as a concerned citizen reporting what she thought was illegal activity, separate from the charity work. Especially when she's pregnant and sympathetic, and you're the one whose name is on all the documents. Agent Reeves's expression was sympathetic but honest. I believe you, Mrs. Weaver. I think Victoria orchestrated this entire scheme and set you up to take the fall. But belief isn't proof. We need more. Victoria returned, looking pale but composed. I'm sorry. The pregnancy has been difficult. Agent Reeves stood. Mrs. Weaver, I'm going to need you to come to our office tomorrow for a formal interview. Bring your lawyer. Am I under arrest? Not yet. But you should probably prepare for that possibility. She turned to me. You too, Leona. We're likely to be filing charges within the week, against one or both of you. After she left, Victoria and I sat in silence. She was the first to speak. Well, that was enlightening. She wasn't bothering with the Wounded Act anymore. They found the call logs. I was wondering when they would. You admit it then. To you? Sure. What does it matter? She smiled. But I'll never admit it to them. And the story I'll tell makes perfect sense. I saw things that made me suspicious. I reported them to the authorities as any good citizen would. I had no idea Leona's charity clients were the same people. It was all a terrible coincidence. They have recordings of your voice. So? I never identified myself. I never connected the calls to Hope Bridge. I'm just a voice on a tip line, doing my civic duty. She stood, moved to the window. Here's what's going to happen, Leona. They're going to charge us both. But my lawyer is better than yours, because I've actually been paying for legal representation for months, preparing for this moment. Your lawyer is a hack I hired specifically because he's incompetent and will ensure you stay confused and defensive. Barron will find me a real lawyer. With what money? Barron's broke. The only money in this family is what I've made from Hope Bridge, and I'm certainly not funding your defense. She turned to face me. You're going to trial with inadequate representation, overwhelming evidence against you, and no credible alternative theory. And I'm going to walk. What about the families? Don't you feel anything for what you did to them? For the first time, something genuine crossed her face. Not remorse, contempt. Those people came here illegally. They broke the law. They were always going to get caught eventually. I just expedited the process and made some money doing it. If they were stupid enough to trust a stranger with their information, that's natural selection. You're a monster. I'm a realist. And I'm going to be a very comfortable realist once this is over. She moved toward the hallway, then paused. Oh, and Leona? I'd start thinking about which assets you're willing to liquidate for your legal defense. This house is worth at least $400,000. That should cover a few years of lawyer fees before you're forced to take a plea deal. She left me sitting in my kitchen, in the house I'd lived in for 30 years, contemplating losing everything. I waited until I heard her bedroom door close, then pulled out my phone. There had to be something I was missing, some piece of evidence Victoria hadn't accounted for, some mistake she'd made. I started searching online for the families, the 47 families who'd been deported. Maybe one of them had documented their experience. Maybe someone had taken photos, kept records, noticed something about Victoria. The first family I found had a GoFundMe page, posted by relatives still in the U.S. The Morales family, Jorge, Maria, and their 3 children, deported to El Salvador 4 months ago. The page showed photos of the children, smiling kids in school uniforms. The description detailed their story. They'd come to Hope Bridge for help, met with a kind older woman and her daughter-in-law, paid $1,500 for legal assistance, and were picked up by ICE 3 weeks later. A kind older woman. Victoria had told them I was involved. She'd made me part of the meetings, even if only in description. If any of those families testified, they'd say I was there. I was present. I knew what was happening. But I'd never met any of them. Never seen their faces until now. Victoria must have claimed to be me, or implied I was endorsing everything. I kept searching and found a Spanish-language news article about the deportations. A reporter had investigated the pattern. 47 families, all connected to the same charity. The article mentioned that authorities were investigating, that the charity's founder was under scrutiny. And then I saw it. Buried in the article. A detail Victoria hadn't told me. 2 of the families had reported their interactions with Hope Bridge before they were deported. They'd gone to a local immigration lawyer, suspicious about the organization, seeking a second opinion. The lawyer had warned them it might be a scam and had reported Hope Bridge to the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office. 4 months ago. The Attorney General's office had opened an investigation 4 months ago, and somehow it had run parallel to the ICE investigation without anyone telling me, which meant there were 2 sets of agents, 2 bodies of evidence, 2 potential cases being built. And Victoria had known. She must have known. That's why she'd started setting me up more carefully in those final months. Why the evidence against me had become more elaborate, more thorough. My phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize, but a local area code. I answered. Mrs. Weaver? My name is Ethel Torres. I'm an attorney with the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office. I understand you've been contacted by federal agents regarding Hope Bridge Foundation. Yes, they're planning to charge me. I know. And I'd like to offer you an alternative. Her voice was professional, crisp. We've been investigating Hope Bridge for 4 months. We have evidence the federal agents don't have, including testimony from families who reported the organization before they were deported. And we have a different theory about who's responsible. What kind of theory? The kind where you're a victim, not a perpetrator. Where your identity was stolen by someone with access to your life. But I need your cooperation, full cooperation. And you need to stop talking to anyone about this case, including and especially your daughter-in-law. She lives in my house. I'm aware, which is why I'm suggesting you might want to take a short trip, visit a friend, get some distance. Give us time to build our case without her monitoring your every move. I can't just leave. The federal agents told me not to. The federal agents don't control you unless you're under arrest, which you're not, yet. She paused. Mrs. Weaver, I've been doing this for 15 years. I know when someone is being set up, and I know when someone is doing the setting up. Your daughter-in-law is smart, but she's not as smart as she thinks. She made mistakes. We found them. But if she realizes we're closing in, she'll run, and we'll lose our chance to prosecute her properly. What do you need from me? Time, space, and trust. Can you give me those things? I thought about Victoria down the hall, pregnant and dangerous, weaving her web tighter every day. I thought about Baron, torn between 2 women he loved. I thought about 47 families, scattered across different countries, their lives destroyed. Yes, I said. Tell me what to do. 3 hours later, I was in my car with a suitcase, driving to my friend Sarah's house 2 counties away. I'd told Baron I needed space to think, told him I'd be gone a few days. His relief had been obvious, one less source of tension in the house. Victoria had hugged me goodbye, whispered that she hoped I'd come to my senses, reminded me that family was forever. I'd smiled and nodded and packed my bags. Now, driving through Pennsylvania countryside as the sun set, I called Ethel Torres back. I'm out. What's next? Next, we gather evidence you can actually use. The federal case is built around documentation, Paper trails, signatures, bank records. Our case is built around something else. Digital forensics, witness testimony, and phone records they haven't fully analyzed yet. What did they miss? Everything your daughter-in-law did online. Every search she made planning this scheme. Every forum she visited learning how to set someone up for fraud. Every social media message she sent to friends bragging about her stupid mother-in-law. Torres's voice hardened. She kept a digital diary, Mrs. Weaver. On a private blog she thought was anonymous. We found it. What does it say? Everything. The whole plan. Documented in real time. How she chose you. How she manipulated your son into marriage. How she moved into your house specifically to gain access to your identity. How she researched the best way to exploit immigrants and avoid detection. She wrote it all down like she was proud of herself. That's evidence. That's proof. It will be, once we verify it's really her writing it. Which is why we need you to help us establish her digital patterns, her voice, her style. We need to prove that blog is hers beyond reasonable doubt. How long will that take? Weeks. Maybe a couple of months. Which is why you need to stay away. Let her think she's won. Let her get comfortable. Comfortable people make mistakes. I pulled into Sarah's driveway as the last light faded from the sky. My friend was at the door before I even got out of the car, her face full of concern and questions. I'll explain everything, I told her. But first, I need to tell you that the next few weeks are going to be strange. I need a place to stay, and I need to not tell anyone, especially my family, exactly where I am or what I'm doing. Sarah, who'd known me for 35 years, who'd taught alongside me and raised her children with mine, simply nodded. Whatever you need. You're safe here. As I carried my suitcase inside, my phone buzzed with a text from Barron. Mom, please reconsider. Victoria's really upset. Can we talk? And another text from an unknown number. Leaving won't save you. The evidence doesn't care where you are. Your lawyer. Except I hadn't told my lawyer I was leaving, which meant Victoria had sent that message using his phone or spoofing his number. She was monitoring me, threatening me, reminding me she could reach me anywhere. I turned off my phone and handed it to Sarah. Can you put this somewhere I won't be tempted to look at it? What's happening, Leona? I'm fighting back, I said. Finally. 3 weeks at Sarah's house felt like 3 years. Every morning, Ethel Torres would call with updates. Every evening, I'd sit at Sarah's kitchen table reviewing documents, analyzing evidence, preparing for what Torres called the confrontation. We need her to incriminate herself, Torres explained during one of our meetings at a coffee shop halfway between Sarah's house and Harrisburg. The blog is powerful evidence, but a good defense attorney will claim it could have been written by anyone. We need her own words, spoken aloud, preferably recorded. You want me to wear a wire. I want you to have a conversation, a real one, where she feels safe enough to tell the truth. Torres stirred her coffee, her expression thoughtful. The federal agents are moving forward with their case against both of you. They're planning to file charges next week. But if we can get solid evidence against Victoria first, we can convince them to focus their prosecution where it belongs. She won't talk to me. She knows I suspect her. But she'll talk to Barron, and Barron will talk to you. Torres pulled out a folder. We've been monitoring their financial accounts, with proper warrants, of course. Victoria's been moving money. Lots of it. $30,000 transferred out of their joint account in the past 2 weeks. She's preparing to run. My chest tightened. She'll take Barron with her. Maybe. Or maybe she'll leave him behind to deal with the fallout. Either way, she's getting ready to disappear, which means we're running out of time. What do you need me to do? Torres slid a piece of paper across the table. Go home. Tell Barron you're ready to take the plea deal the federal prosecutor is offering. Tell him you're going to plead guilty to fraud charges, that you'll probably get house arrest because of your age, but that you need to say goodbye to your home, your life as you knew it. Make it emotional. Make it real. That's not hard. It is real. Then Victoria will want to meet with you. She'll want to make sure you're actually going through with it, that you're not planning some last-minute defense. And when she does, we'll be listening. The recording device Torres gave me was smaller than I expected. A button on my cardigan, nearly invisible. She'd also provided my phone back, now equipped with software that would record any conversation within 20 feet. Just get her talking, Torres had said. About the plan, about the money, about her intentions. Anything that shows she knew what she was doing and did it deliberately. Now, standing on the porch of my own house, my suitcase at my feet, I felt the weight of that button like an anchor. Barron opened the door and his face crumpled with relief. Mom, thank goodness. I've been so worried. He pulled me into a hug, and I held him tight, breathing in the familiar scent of my son. Sawdust and coffee and home. I'm sorry I left, I said quietly. I needed to think. I understand. Come in. Are you okay? I followed him inside. The house looked the same, but felt different. Colder somehow. Victoria was in the kitchen, her pregnancy more visible now, her hand resting on her rounded stomach. Leona. Her smile was cautious, measured. Welcome home. Thank you. I set my suitcase down. Is it still home? Or should I start thinking of it as the place I used to live? Barron's face fell. Mom, don't talk like that. The federal prosecutor called yesterday. They're offering a plea deal. 5 years house arrest, forfeiture of assets, restitution to the victims. If I take it, I avoid prison. If I don't, I'm looking at 15 to 20 years behind bars. The words came out steady, practiced. Torres had helped me rehearse them. I've decided to take the deal. No. Barron's voice was firm. You can't. You didn't do this. Barron, the evidence says otherwise. And I'm 63 years old. I can't spend years fighting a case I might lose. I need to accept reality. Victoria moved closer, her expression sympathetic. Leona, if that's what you think is best, we support you. Don't we, Barron? I don't support giving up, Barron said, but his voice wavered. I'm not giving up. I'm being practical. I looked at Victoria. I know you've been dealing with a lot of stress because of this. I want to apologize. Whatever my role in this disaster, I never meant for it to affect you and the baby. Something flickered in Victoria's eyes. Surprise, perhaps, or calculation. I appreciate that, she said carefully. And I want you to know, I don't blame you. I think you made mistakes. But I don't think you're a bad person. That's generous of you. I moved to the living room, sat on my couch. I need to start going through things, deciding what to keep, what to sell. The house will have to be mortgaged to pay for restitution. I'll probably lose it eventually. Don't think about that now, Barron said, sitting beside me. Just rest. You look exhausted. I am exhausted. I let my voice break slightly. I'm tired of fighting, tired of being angry, tired of trying to figure out what happened and how it all went so wrong. Victoria sat across from us, her posture relaxed now. Sometimes, accepting what we can't change is the strongest thing we can do. Is that what you did? Accept things you couldn't change? I'm not sure what you mean. I mean, you built something with Hope Bridge. You worked hard on it. And now it's all destroyed, your reputation questioned. That must be difficult. It is, she said slowly. I put my heart into that organization. I really thought we were helping people. Were you surprised? When the agents told us about the deportations? Barron shifted uncomfortably beside me. Mom, maybe we shouldn't. I'm just trying to understand, I said gently. I've been thinking about it for weeks. How did it all go so wrong? How did an organization meant to help people end up destroying them instead? Victoria's eyes narrowed slightly. I think someone infiltrated the organization, used our information for malicious purposes. It's the only explanation that makes sense. Who would do that? I don't know. Maybe someone with access to the office. To your office, I mean. Someone who came to the house. But the evidence suggests the person running the scheme was also running the organization. The call logs, the email patterns, the financial transactions, it all points to someone with intimate knowledge of Hope Bridge's operations. Leona. Victoria's voice had an edge now. What are you doing? Trying to understand. That's all. I met her gaze. Because if I'm going to plead guilty to something, I'd like to know what I actually did, and what I didn't do. You said you were taking the plea deal. I am, but I'd like some clarity first. For my own peace of mind. I paused. You were executive director. You handled the day-to-day operations. You had access to everything. My computer, my email, my signature stamp. You could have done all of this without me ever knowing. Baron stood abruptly. Mom, stop. You can't. I can ask questions, Baron. I think I've earned that right. I kept my eyes on Victoria. The agents found call logs from our home phone to ICE tip lines. They have recordings. The voice on those recordings is yours, Victoria. That's not true. They can match voice patterns. It's science. Your voice, reporting families who'd just paid Hope Bridge for help. 47 families, 116 people, 31 children. Victoria stood, her hand protectively on her stomach. I don't have to listen to this. I've been nothing but supportive, and now you're attacking me again. Baron, I can't take this stress. The baby is fine, I said quietly. Because there is no baby. Is there, Victoria? The room went silent. Baron turned to his wife, his face pale. What is she talking about? She's confused. She's under enormous stress and I called your obstetrician's office, I said. Or rather, the Attorney General's office did with a proper warrant. There's no record of you as a patient. No prenatal visits, no ultrasounds, no pregnancy at all. Victoria's mask cracked. You had no right. I had every right to investigate someone who's been destroying my life. I stood, facing her across my living room. The pregnancy was just another manipulation, another way to secure Baron's loyalty, another layer of protection against suspicion. Baron, Victoria turned to him, tears forming. Don't listen to her. She's trying to turn you against me because she can't face what she did. But Baron was staring at his wife's stomach. You told me we were having a girl. You said we'd felt her kick. You've been taking prenatal vitamins every morning. I am pregnant. She's lying. They're all lying to protect themselves. Prove it, Baron said, his voice hollow. Show me medical records. Let's go to the doctor right now. Prove you're pregnant. Victoria's face went through a series of emotions. Fear, anger, calculation. Then something settled. Something cold and final. Fine. You want the truth? There's no baby. There never was. I told you I was pregnant because you were starting to doubt me, starting to ask too many questions about Hope Bridge. The pregnancy made you stop asking. She looked at me. And it worked. It made you both pliable, easy to control. Victoria, Baron's voice broke. Don't. She held up a hand. Don't act betrayed. You knew what you were marrying. A woman who came from nothing and was willing to do whatever it took to have something. You thought it was attractive when I was ambitious and clever. You just didn't like it when I applied those qualities to your mother. You destroyed families, I said. You took money from desperate people and then had them deported for profit. I took money from criminals. They were here illegally. They were always going to get caught. I just expedited the process and made it profitable. She was fully herself now, the mask completely gone. And yes, I set you up, because you were perfect, trusting, respectable, naive, the ideal person to take the fall. Why? Baron's question was barely audible. Because I wanted money, because I was tired of being poor, because I could. She looked at him with something like pity. And because your mother made it so easy. Every signature I needed, every password I asked for, every document I told her was something else. She just gave it to me. She trusted me completely. That's not a justification, I said. That's an explanation of how you exploited someone's kindness. Call it what you want. It worked. She moved toward the hallway. And now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to pack. You've clearly made your choice, Baron. Choose your mother over your wife. I'm sure that will work out well for you. You're not going anywhere, I said quietly. Victoria laughed. You think you can stop me? With what? Your hurt feelings? Your moral superiority? I have money. I have a plan. And I have a very good head start. You have Pennsylvania State Police outside every exit of this house. Ethel Torres stepped through my front door, badge extended, 2 officers behind her. And you have the right to remain silent, though you've already said quite a lot. Victoria Walsh, you're under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, conspiracy to defraud, and violations of Pennsylvania's immigrant exploitation statutes. Victoria's face went white as the officers moved forward, handcuffs ready. You recorded this. She looked at me, at the button on my cardigan, at the phone on the coffee table. You set me up. I established the truth, I corrected. With your own words, your own admission of guilt. Everything you did to me, you just confessed to doing deliberately, knowingly, and without remorse. As the officers read Victoria her rights and led her toward the door, she stopped, looked back at me one last time. You think you've won? They'll still charge you too. You signed those documents. You provided the infrastructure. You're not innocent, Leona. You're just less guilty than I am. Maybe, I said. But I can live with that. Can you? They took her away. Through the window, I watched them put her in the back of an unmarked car, watched the car disappear down my quiet street. Baron stood in the middle of the living room, looking lost. Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have believed you. I should have... You loved your wife. That's not something to apologize for. I moved to him, took his hands. But Baron, you need to understand something. This isn't over. Victoria was right. I'll probably still face charges. The federal case against me is separate from the state case against her. I might still end up pleading guilty to something. But you didn't do anything wrong. I signed documents without reading them carefully. I gave someone access to my life without protecting myself. I trusted when I should have questioned. I squeezed his hands. Those aren't crimes exactly, but they're not innocence either. Ethel Torres was still in my living room, organizing papers. Mrs. Weaver, we'll need your full cooperation for the prosecution against Victoria. Your testimony will be crucial. You'll have it, whatever you need. And I've been in contact with the federal prosecutors. Given Victoria's confession, which we have on excellent recording, by the way, they're willing to discuss dropping charges against you in exchange for your cooperation. No guarantees, but it's likely you'll walk away from this with no criminal record. The relief that washed over me was so intense I had to sit down. Thank you. Thank you for believing me. Thank you for being smart enough to collect evidence and brave enough to face her. Torres smiled, though I have to say, that fake pregnancy reveal was perfect. How did you know? I didn't. Not for certain. But I've been a woman for 63 years, and I've known pregnant women. Victoria wasn't showing the signs. No morning sickness that lasted past breakfast. No food aversions. No exhaustion. She was wearing the same tight clothes she'd always worn. It was a calculated guess. A guess that paid off. She admitted to everything. The fraud, the setup, the manipulation. Torres gathered her papers. She's going to prison for a long time, Mrs. Weaver. What she did to those families, what she did to you, justice will be served. After Torres left with her team, Baron and I sat together in the quiet house. What happens now? He asked. Now we figure out how to help the families Victoria hurt. Now I testify against her. Now we both learn to trust more carefully and love more wisely. I looked at my son, seeing the pain in his eyes, the betrayal. And now you heal. That takes time, Baron. Don't rush it. I brought her into your life, into your home. This is my fault. No, Victoria's choices are her fault. We can't control other people. We can only control how we respond to them. I stood, moved to the window. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. But Baron, there's something I need from you. Anything. Help me contact the families, the ones who were deported. I want to find a way to make restitution, real restitution, not just what the court orders. I want to help them in whatever way I can. Mom, you don't have the money for that. Then I'll find it. I'll mortgage this house, sell whatever I need to sell. Those families lost everything because someone used my name. I need to make that right. Baron was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. I'll help. We'll figure it out together. As darkness fell over my Pennsylvania farmhouse, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. The battle wasn't over. Victoria would fight the charges. The legal process would be long and difficult. The families I'd unknowingly helped destroy would need years to rebuild their lives. But truth had emerged. Justice was beginning. And I was still standing. 6 months later, I stood in a courtroom in Harrisburg, watching Victoria Walsh face sentencing. Her expensive lawyer, the real one, not the incompetent one she'd hired for me, had fought hard. But Victoria's recorded confession had sealed her fate. The jury had deliberated for less than 4 hours, guilty on all counts. The judge, a stern woman in her 50s with kind eyes, read through the charges methodically. Wire fraud, identity theft, conspiracy, immigrant exploitation under Pennsylvania state law. Each guilty verdict came with its own weight, its own consequence. Mrs. Walsh, the judge said, looking directly at Victoria, I've presided over many cases in my career. I've seen desperation drive people to crime. I've seen poverty, addiction, mental illness, factors that, while they don't excuse criminal behavior, help explain it. But your case is different. You weren't desperate. You weren't impoverished. You were simply greedy, and you were willing to destroy vulnerable families to satisfy that greed. Victoria stood perfectly still, her face composed. She'd gained weight in jail. No longer the slim, polished woman who'd lived in my house. Her hair was pulled back simply, her clothes plain, but her eyes still held that calculating quality, that sense that she was always 3 moves ahead. You exploited your mother-in-law's trust and reputation. You stole from immigrants who came to you for help. You reported them for deportation to collect reward money. And you showed no remorse. In fact, your recorded statements demonstrate a disturbing lack of empathy or conscience. The judge consulted her notes. The prosecution has presented testimony from 3 families who managed to return to the United States legally. Their testimony about the trauma you inflicted, the terror their children experienced, the loss of their homes and livelihoods, is heartbreaking. I'd sat through that testimony. Maria Rodriguez, who'd returned on a humanitarian visa, describing how her 8-year-old daughter still had nightmares about being taken from their apartment. Jorge Morales, testifying via video link from El Salvador, explaining how his family had lost everything they'd worked for. A young mother named Carmen Santos, whose husband had been detained separately, and whom she hadn't seen in 7 months. Victoria had watched it all with the same blank expression she wore now. I'm sentencing you to 15 years in federal prison, to be followed by 5 years of supervised release. You will also be required to pay full restitution to all 47 families you defrauded, totaling approximately $160,000 plus damages. The judge's gavel came down with finality. I hope you use your time in prison to develop the conscience you appear to lack. As they led Victoria away, she looked back once. Not at Barron, who sat 2 rows behind me, his face pale and drawn. Not at her own parents, who'd flown in from Ohio and sat in stunned silence. At me. And she smiled. A small, knowing smile that said she still believed she'd been smarter, cleverer, better than all of us. That her only mistake had been getting caught. I didn't smile back. I simply watched her go, watched her disappear through the door that led to the holding cells, to the prison transport, to 15 years of consequence. Ethel Torres found me in the hallway afterward. It's over, Mrs. Weaver. Federal charges against you were formally dropped this morning. You're free. Completely free. Thank you. For everything you did. Thank you for having the courage to fight back. She handed me a folder. These are contact details for some of the families. Several of them have expressed interest in meeting you when you're ready. Some are angry. They associate Hope Bridge with you, even knowing you were a victim too. But others understand what happened and want to thank you for your testimony. I took the folder, held it carefully. I'll reach out to them. All of them, even the angry ones. They deserve that. Barron was waiting by the courthouse steps. He'd lost weight over the past months, looked older than his 34 years. The divorce papers had been filed the day after Victoria's arrest. He'd moved back into my house temporarily, sleeping in his old childhood bedroom, trying to piece together who he was without the woman he'd thought he'd married. You okay, Mom? I'm better than okay. I took his arm as we walked to the parking lot. I'm vindicated. I'm free. And I'm starting to think about what comes next. What does come next? I'd been thinking about that question for months. The answer had come slowly, carefully, through long nights and quiet mornings and conversations with Sarah over tea. I'm going to sell the house, I said. Baron stopped walking. What? Mom, that's your home. You've lived there for 30 years. And it's full of memories, good ones and bad ones. But it's also too big for me, too expensive to maintain, and too associated with everything that happened. I squeezed his arm. I've already found a nice condo in town. 2 bedrooms so you can visit. A small garden plot. Affordable, manageable, mine. But the restitution, I thought the court only ordered Victoria to pay. It did. But Victoria has no money. She spent it all on lawyers and moving it to offshore accounts the investigators couldn't touch. Those families won't see a penny from her for years, if ever. I'd made peace with my decision weeks ago. So I'm selling the house and using the proceeds to make direct restitution payments. Not to everyone, I don't have that much, but to as many as I can help. Starting with the families who testified. Mom, you don't have to do that. Legally, you're not responsible. Legally, no. Morally, yes. We reached the car. My name was used to hurt people, Baron. My reputation, my signature, my home. I can't undo that harm, but I can try to address it. And I can't do that while living in the house where it all happened. He was quiet for a long moment. You're remarkable, you know that? I'm just doing what's right. No, you're doing what's extraordinary. Most people in your position would take their vindication and move on. You're choosing to sacrifice your home to help strangers. They're not strangers. They're people whose lives intersected with mine in the worst possible way. I owe them what I can give. The drive home, I still thought of it as home, though not for much longer, was peaceful. Spring was arriving in Pennsylvania, bringing green to the fields and warmth to the air. I'd always loved this drive, this landscape. I'd love it from somewhere else now. Baron helped me start packing that evening. We worked in comfortable silence, wrapping dishes, boxing books, sorting through 30 years of accumulated life. I found something, Baron said from the spare bedroom, the room that had been Victoria's office. He emerged holding a small notebook, leather-bound and expensive-looking. It was hidden in the back of the closet. I opened it carefully. Victoria's handwriting filled the pages. Notes, calculations, plans. This wasn't the digital diary the AG's office had found. This was something else, something physical she'd kept as backup. The entries started 2 years ago, before she'd even married Baron. Target identified, Leona Weaver, 61, retired teacher, widow, well-respected in community. Son Baron, 32, construction worker, financially unstable. Initial approach through community center volunteer work, establish connection, then relationship with son. My hands trembled as I read further. Leona is perfect, trusting, generous, eager to help. She's already mentioned her work with immigrant students. Can use this. Marriage to Baron gives me access to house, computer, personal information. Timeline. 6 months to establish trust, 12 months to execute plan, 6 months to establish ironclad evidence trail leading to her. She'd planned everything. Every moment, every manipulation, every step of her scheme. Written it down like a business plan. Mom, maybe you shouldn't read that, Baron said quietly. No, I should. I kept reading. I need to see exactly what happened, what I missed. The entries detailed her research into immigration fraud, her calculations of potential profit, her strategies for gaining my trust. There were notes about my habits, my schedule, my friends. She'd studied me like a specimen, looking for weaknesses to exploit. And she'd found them. My trusting nature, my desire to help, my loneliness after my husband's death, my joy at having Baron close again. But the final entries, written just days before the raid, revealed something unexpected. Leona is becoming suspicious. She asks too many questions now. The federal investigation is closing in. Need to accelerate timeline. If necessary, she'll take full blame. She signed everything. But backup plan. Fake pregnancy ensures Baron's loyalty if she tries to implicate me. He'll choose the baby over his mother. Everyone does. Except there was no baby. And Baron had chosen truth over loyalty. She was wrong about you, I said, looking at my son. She thought she'd calculated everything, But she didn't understand that some people value truth over comfort. She didn't understand a lot of things. Barron took the notebook, closed it gently. Should we give this to the prosecutors? Additional evidence? They have enough. Victoria's in prison for 15 years. I took the notebook back, moved to the kitchen fireplace, the old wood-burning stove I'd cooked on during winter. This is just her poisonous thoughts. It doesn't need to exist anymore. I placed the notebook in the stove and lit a match. We watched it burn together, watched Victoria's calculated plans turn to ash. Over the next 3 months, I sold the house to a young couple expecting their first child. They loved the garden, the big kitchen, the quiet street. I told them it was a good house, a happy house, a place where families could grow. I didn't tell them everything that had happened there. They'd find out eventually. It had been in all the local papers. But they'd find out after they'd made their own memories, their own happiness. The sale netted me enough to buy my condo, establish a modest retirement fund, and distribute $75,000 among the families Victoria had betrayed. It wasn't enough to restore what they'd lost, but it was something, a gesture of accountability, a recognition of harm. Maria Rodriguez cried when I met her at a coffee shop to give her a check for $5,000. You didn't have to do this, Mrs. Weaver. We know you were a victim, too. I was a careless victim. I should have paid more attention, asked more questions, protected my identity better. I pushed the check across the table. This won't bring back what you lost, but maybe it helps rebuild something. It helps more than you know. She folded the check carefully. My daughter, she can start therapy now, for the nightmares. We couldn't afford it before. I met with 12 families over those months. Some were grateful, some were wary. 2 refused to see me at all, and I respected that choice. Their association with Leona Weaver was too painful, regardless of the truth. But most understood. Most saw that I was trying, in my imperfect way, to make something right from something very wrong. Ethel Torres stopped by my new condo on the day I finished moving in. She brought wine and take-out Chinese food, and we sat on my small balcony watching the sun set over town. How do you feel? She asked. Lighter, I said honestly. Poorer, but lighter. Older, but wiser. I smiled. Like I've learned something important about trust and vigilance and the balance between them. What's the lesson? That kindness doesn't mean naivety. That helping others requires protecting yourself. That trust should be given carefully but not withheld fearfully. I sipped my wine. And that when someone shows you who they really are, you should believe them, but you should also gather evidence. Torres laughed. That's a very practical moral. I'm a very practical person. I just forgot that for a while. She left as darkness fell, and I stood on my balcony alone, looking at my new neighborhood, my new life, smaller than before, but mine, unencumbered by the past, unburdened by the weight of someone else's crimes. Barron called as I was getting ready for bed. Mom, I got a job. A real one, with benefits and everything. Construction management for a firm in Harrisburg. That's wonderful, sweetheart. And I've been talking to a therapist about Victoria, about trust, about how I missed all the signs. He paused. She says I was a victim, too, of Victoria's manipulation, that I shouldn't blame myself for loving someone who turned out to be different than I thought. Your therapist is right. But you knew. You figured it out. How did you know when I didn't? I thought about that question. I had distance. You were in love. Love makes us want to see the best in people. There's nothing wrong with that. It's actually beautiful. You just have to balance it with wisdom. Like you do? Like I'm learning to do. I'm 64 years old, Barron, and I'm still learning. I smiled into the phone. That's the secret, I think. Never stop learning. Never stop growing. Never stop questioning when something feels wrong. After we hung up, I made myself tea and sat in my new living room, surrounded by boxes still to unpack, in this space that was entirely mine. Tomorrow I'd start volunteering at the local library. Next month, I'd begin teaching ESL classes at the community center, helping immigrants, but this time with proper oversight, proper structure, proper protection for everyone involved. I'd join a new book club, make new friends, build a new life. But tonight, I simply sat in the quiet, drinking tea, feeling the profound relief of truth acknowledged and justice served. Victoria had been right about one thing. I was trusting. I was kind. I did want to help people. But she'd been wrong about what that meant. She'd mistaken kindness for weakness, generosity for foolishness, trust for naivety. She'd forgotten that the same qualities that made me vulnerable also made me resilient. That the same openness that let her in also let me learn, adapt, and fight back. That 63 years of life had taught me something she'd never understand. Real strength isn't about manipulation or control. It's about integrity. About doing what's right even when it's costly. About standing up even when you're afraid. I set my empty teacup on the side table and looked around my new home. Small, manageable, safe. Outside my window, the street was quiet, the neighbors friendly, the world full of possibility. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. There would be more legal paperwork to sign, more families to contact, more healing to do, my own and others. But tonight, I was free, and that was enough. Now tell me, what would you have done if you were in my place? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out the video on your screen right now. I'm sure it will surprise you.